Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be talking about 5 quick tips that you can use to gain some ELO fast at the start of the season. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. We stream every night starting around midnight Eastern Standard Time, usually go till about 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, only on YouTube, so come by, check it out. It's a very friendly, chill community. I'm happy to talk with you about anything that you want to talk about, and we do lots of guides like this on the channel, including fresh patch notes, tier lists, individual champion guides, and topical guides like this all the time, so be sure to check back for more content. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. Now, first of all, just recognize there is no easy way to climb in terms of you're going to automatically be challenger, right? By the end of the week. At the end of the day, you're competing against other people, and those other people are also trying to improve, and the league community in general gets better each season as players get more and more practiced. And so I'm not saying you're going to be challenger, but I am saying that if you do these 5 things, you will gain some ELO much faster than if you don't do any of these things. So hopefully this will help you out. And this is something that you can do no matter whatever your skill level is, no matter whatever your mechanics are. It doesn't involve any fancy flash out plays or, you know, any godlike Lee Sin or Yasuo play or anything like that. You can do this and have, you know, slow reflexes, bad internet connection, just all sorts of other things going on mechanically. This is strictly macro and knowledge-based stuff that you can do to improve at any skill bracket with any champion pool, with any internet connection, you know, whatever. It will help you. Okay, so the first thing to understand if you're trying to climb is that you have to be able to carry if you want to climb. Now, that does not necessarily mean that you have to do the most damage on your team or get 30 kills every game. That's one way of carrying. But what that means is you have to have an outsized influence on the game, right? You have to be able to win with people that are doing much worse than you are. And that's something that a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around. They're like, but all my teammates are really bad. How can I climb? It's like, well, if you're doing better than them, you have to learn how to win the game with teammates who are doing worse. Because if you deserve to climb, that means you're going to be in games with people that are worse than you are, and you're going to climb past where they are. Okay, if everyone was the same skill as you, then you wouldn't climb anywhere. You'd be at an equilibrium. You'd be like, okay, I'm playing like an average gold 4 player, therefore I'm going to be in gold 4, right? So like carrying and climbing means that people are going to look like they're worse than you, and you have to perform better than them. That is normal if you're climbing, right? If you're not climbing, you know, then you might get some games where it feels like everyone is on the same level as you are, right? But if you're climbing, you have to outperform. So if you're just playing average, if everyone feels like they're, you know, good on your team, then you're probably not going to climb that much in the long run. Okay, so everyone should look worse. Now, we'll get into what look means right there, because I think a lot of people aren't honest with themselves about how they're performing. But if you are climbing, everyone should appear as though they're not as good as you are. Okay. And so you have to be able to win multiple lanes. You have to be able to close out games and have that outsized influence on the game. So I just want to throw that out there because people seem like it's something crazy when their teammates are like making mistakes, or it just seems like a lot of people on their team are not doing that well. If you think about it statistically, right, if each lane in any given ELO bracket is going to be 50-50, right, if it's balanced, it should be 50-50. And if you win every single time, no one does. But if you win every single time, you outplay your counterpart on the enemy team, it's still going to be likely that you're going to have 2 people on average underperform 2 people on the enemy team, right? Because the other 4 players are in a 50-50, you know, coin flip type of situation. So it should not be unusual. It should be normal to have, you know, at least a couple people on your team that aren't doing as well as their enemy counterparts, okay? Now, how does some of these people get like 90% win rates? The trick is it's not a coin flip, because you can do things to influence the game, even to help people lose winning matchups, right? So maybe if you just left that Kled top against the Darius, maybe he would go 0-10 by 20 minutes, but if you completely crush your lane and then get up there to help him, maybe he only goes 0-5 and the game's salvageable, right? So you have to think about it in terms of what can you do to help your team win, not just help you win in lane, but help your team win overall. Okay, so let's get into the things here. Okay, so the number one thing to do is to prepare before you ever play a ranked game. You need to increase your knowledge of the game, at least a little bit. I'm not saying you have to study 6 hours of footage every day, but you got to put forth at least a little bit of minimal effort if you're serious about climbing. So the first step is to identify 1 to 3 champions that you want to play. If you're playing more than that consistently, you're not really serious about climbing, because you have to be able to go in depth in order to know the limits of your champion and in order to really take advantage of a lot of situations that are going to come your way. Because if you're constantly trying to, read your abilities and understand your ranges and understand, your relative threat level to other champions at any point in the game, you're not going to be focusing on other stuff, right? You're not going to be watching your mini map as much. You're not going to be looking for as many opportunities as you could have. So I just did a video on one-tricking, so definitely watch that if you want to learn more about why it's important to lower your champion pool. I'm not saying that you have to one-trick overall, but I'm saying that if you are committed to climbing, you need to try to play 1 to 3 champions a lot. And this is super common if you watch a lot of high elo players, Diamond Plus, Masters Plus. A lot of them have a very small champion pool, right? Maybe 3 to 5 champions. Now, pro players will have much more because it's their job to have more, right? It's their job to be good at whatever the meta is. But the vast, vast majority of high elo players, are going to play most of their games on, maybe 3 champions or so. Okay. Try to practice in normals first, right? So unless you're playing a champion that is very similar to something else that you played, or it has a very low skill floor, so it's pretty easy to be effective on that champion, you really, really want to practice it in normals first, at least for a couple of games, just so you can kind of get a feel for some of the different abilities out there, just so you can kind of learn some of the ranges, on your abilities and just how much damage they do and what you should do in different situations. Now, some champions are going to take much longer to master, but you want to make sure that you put in at least a couple of games in order to really get that high win rate and really try to climb. So you can play stuff, first time in ranked if you want to, but just don't expect to have a really high win rate if you're consistently doing that. Okay, watch reputable guides for champions. So I put out some pretty good in-depth guides for several supports. I'm going to be adding some more. There are other people who do that as well. But just watch something that's an actual guide that's going to break down some of the abilities for you, that's going to tell you when to, how to use your champion in different situations. That's going to, show you and kind of break you down either with footage or with some tool like I'm going to use over here to explain some stuff to you. Have them break it down for you. Sometimes it just really pisses me off when I'm trying to learn a new champion and I click on something and it says it's a guide and it's literally just a guy playing a game with the champion. Like, right? It's just a challenger who's just playing Thresh in the bottom lane and they're calling it a guide. It's like, that's not a guide. That's someone talking while they're playing a game. So try to find good, reputable guides that are going to break down and explain the theoretical stuff for you. It could also be a written guide. If you want to find one of those, but just try to figure out what's going on. What's the optimal way to play these champions, and watch high-level gameplay. So watching the gameplay is good too. I would say watch a guide that's separate, that just breaks it down theoretically, and then just watch a few games, right? And if you go on Lolalytics here, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. Let's say I wanted to learn Thresh. They're going to show you high elo Thresh players over here, right? So they're going to show you, okay, this is the leaderboard that they have calculated up for a bunch of different people. So you could just click on that, just kind of see what are some of the items they're getting. Try to think carefully about, okay, why did he do that this game? Why did he get Mikhail's this game instead of a more common Thresh item, right? Well, it's probably because he was against Seraphine and he was really worried about that stun, right? He wanted a way to counter that stun. Versus this game, he rushed a Locket, potentially to prevent a lot of the burst damage off of the Talon, right? So just start thinking situationally, why are they doing these different builds? And if you can get the names of some of these people, then you could even search them up. Now you can just YouTube Challenger, Thresh or something like that, and there's like LOL replays and some other stuff that will, find you some of those games. But just try to find some really recent games, pro games, challenger games, just other people that are highly experienced on the champion, and just watch how they do stuff and think carefully about why are they doing that? Why do they choose not to do this in this other situation? So once again, you don't have to watch like 20 hours of that stuff. Just if you can just watch one, while you're eating lunch, or listen to it in the background while you're driving somewhere or on the subway or whatever it is, just get some of that theory crafting, get some of that footage in your mind. And then Yeah, try to think about the builds, critique your own gameplay, and be honest. You can go back and watch your replays through the League client, or you can record it with something like OBS, which is what I'm using over here on the side to record this. And at least find a couple of moments where you were confused, where you weren't really sure, you think you may have made a mistake, or like, why did your team do this or not? Why did they not follow up on that engage? How did you end up getting ganked? Why did that all-in not work out at level 3? Just go back and watch it. Put it in slow-mo and just be honest. Like, what could you have done better? So, yes, your teammates may have messed up. Yes, they may have done this. But could you have called it better? Could you have pinged it in advance, right? Maybe you just went in with Alistar and no one was expecting it, so they didn't follow up, right? Could you have pinged it, 3 seconds earlier and then gone in, right? Did you engage when you only had 4 people there? Right? Maybe your ADC just backed and you didn't see it and you chose to fight them around Dragon and they had 5 people there. You can see that your ADC just backed, so the proper play is to lay down that Dragon and not fight for it unless you're extremely far ahead and have a good engage on him. Just look at stuff like that and just be honest. Just say, okay, I tower dove that, but we didn't know where mid laner was, and we shouldn't have done that because there's a chance they could have been roaming bottom. Right? Yeah, your mid, maybe they didn't ping MIA, but you have a mini map. You can see their mid laner's not there, and you should, be cautious about that, right? You should definitely not try to tower dive with no vision on the mid laner in case they rotate down. That's a disaster. So just be honest. Don't try to blame other people for it. Yes, they could have screwed it up, and they will screw it up a lot, right? But just think about what could you have done to increase the percentage of having a good play there. And then finally, just scout the lobby, right? I use Porofessor sometimes. You can use op.gg or other things. And you're just looking for any indicators about how your team might perform in a game. So, and I like to use a very rough 3 strikes and you're out rule for dodges. Now, I talk about dodges in a completely separate video, so check that out on the channel if you want. I'm not going to go super in depth there. But if you see 2 or 3 people that are auto-filled on your team, they're not playing their main role, or they're not playing a champion that they've played in the last 30 days consistently, that should be a red flag, especially if it's a very off-meta, pick or off-meta champion. So, for example, like Ezreal and Varus are pretty bad right now in the bot lane. So if the enemy team has like Jhin, Leona in the bot lane, and your bot laner is, picking Ezreal, and they usually jungle, and this is the first time they played Ezreal in the last 30 days, that's really bad. So you want to make sure that you have the chance to win. So someone needs to be on some carry champions that are going to be able to win. You might be able to play that game, right? The one that I just described, the Ezreal versus Jhin Leona, if your mid laner is like a 70%, one-trick Victor, and they're on Victor in the mid, and if your top lane is like a 70% Camille, and they're on Camille in the top lane, maybe you can play that game. Right, so I'm not saying that like one person or one lane is going to determine the dodge or not. Just take these things into account, right? If you have that auto-filled Ezreal bottom, and then your mid laner is a support who doesn't usually play mid, and they're picking, something like Morgana mid lane right now, and they're 30% Morgana. I mean, a lot of this should be self-evident and obvious, right? If you're looking at this stuff, it's just like, if it looks like it's going to be a bad situation for 2 or 3 people on your team, and you just can't really understand how your team is supposed to win that game, just dodge. The first dodge every day is only 3 LP, and then it's 10 LP for every dodge after that. But losing 10 LP is still worth it if you would have lost 17 off of losing the game. And if you dodge, you don't lose your hidden matchmaking rating, your MMR. You only lose LP. So what that means is you will eventually start winning more LP per win if you dodge consistently instead of taking losses. Once again, watch the video if you want to know the difference between LP and MMR, how that system works, all that stuff. I've got an entire hour-long video about it. But just dodge. I mean, sometimes people say, oh, that game was unwinnable. I had, this really bad, really bad team comp, and the enemy had this really awesome team comp. I mean, my first thought is, why didn't you dodge? Right? Like, if you're playing, all F-tier champions on your team, and the enemy team has all S-tier champions, why are you playing that game? If you're serious about winning, right? If you're just YOLO and you just want to have fun, that's fine. But you can't complain about it later, because that information is available. You just go look it up and just see, that, hey, these people are playing weird champs, they don't have experience on it, or they have a really low win rate. Enemy team's got primetime champs. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going to happen most of the time in those games, right? So do yourself a favor, help yourself climb, and dodge those games that look really bad. Okay, so it's obviously some discretion. You're going to have to make a judgment call on that, but just know that that's an available option. You can get that information from Professor or op.gg. You're not getting it to rage at people or flame at people. Hey, Teemo, why are you first timing Teemo top lane? Right? You beep, you know, cussing at him or something in the chat. You're just soaking it in, and you're just processing the information. You're just saying, is this a winnable game? Right? Am I, like, what's my percentage to win this game? And if your percentage is less than 35-40%, you probably just need to dodge. And I talk about how to think about percentages in that dodge video, so go watch that if you're interested. Okay, so make sure that before the game you're prepped, you've got your champion pool narrowed, you're practicing your champs, you're doing some research on, you know, what's the best way to play the champ, and then you're dodging any lobbies that look like it's a low probability to win. Okay, next thing, improve your vision game. And these are all interconnected, the next few things that I'm going to say. So improve your vision game is going to give you more information, and once you process information better, then you're going to be able to be more proactive and make good decisions. And that's going to help you cultivate a winning mentality. So let's start with the first one. Improve your vision game. Vision is the most OP resource in League of Legends. It's obvious in like Challenger that people take it very seriously, and in pro games, but even down in Bronze, even in Iron, Vision will win you more games than almost anything out there. And a lot of this is because most fights are determined by the engage, right? If somebody gets a really good engage and picks somebody off at the start of a fight and turns it into a 4v5, you're going to win a lot of those fights most of the time, right? Or if you're able to kill people over and over and over again on rotations while they're walking through the jungle, and you're an assassin, you pick them off, you do that, you know, 3 times, you get really fed, game's probably going to be over, right? So vision is what determines a lot of the game, because that opens up information, and with that information you get the first action, you get to be proactive against the enemy the vast majority of the time. So vision is supremely important, but most people do not really respect it as much as they should. So you need to have a control word on the map at all times. Okay, every role needs to have a control word on the map. This is the biggest mistake that I see in a lot of the coaching sessions that I've done, and in just watching a lot of other footage out there, is, you know, carry lanes don't want to buy that control word. And it is supremely important, because the support can only put one control word on the map at a time, and control words are the most overpowered item in the game. I promise you they are. If you just, you know, just hear me out for a second and try them out in your game using some of those tips that I'm going to talk about in terms of vision, and I promise you'll win more games. Okay, so everybody needs to have a control word. Just think of the cost of a control word, right? It's 75 gold on your back, okay? And I know that sounds like a lot, but keep in mind that if you get a kill, right, or you get someone on your team gets a kill, that's 450 gold most of the time. People miscalculate kills, because a lot of kills are going to be assisted, and assists is plus 50% on the gold. Okay, so that's equal to 6 wards, right? 75 times 6 is going to be 450. Okay, so that means that if you buy 6 control wards, and from that information you got off that control ward, you're able to get just 1 extra kill in the game, or you save yourself from 1 death, so you deny the enemy 450 gold, that is worth it. That is the break-even point, okay? If you have 6 wards and it saves 1 person or causes 1 extra kill, then it's worth it. Anything over that is a gain, right? That's a net positive to your overall team gold. Now think about how likely that is. 6 wards, all of that information, you're going to get kills. And that's not even including if you kill wards, right? So if you put a ward down with your control ward and you kill one of the support's green wards, then you're going to get 30 gold back. So then it's only 45 gold. So now you can place 10 wards and get that information. And with control words, you're denying the enemy information, right? So you're locking out that support. So now they can't make good decisions. They don't know if you're Zed mid, they don't know if you're roaming or not, because you've locked out that vision. They don't know if you backed, if you're roaming, if you're going for dragon, if you're invading the enemy jungle. They don't know. If you're just waiting for them in a random bush, they're going to be paralyzed by fear. Or they're not, and they're not going to respect you, and they're going to walk into you, and you're going to get tons and tons of kills and tons of value off of it. So it is supremely important that you get control wards. And just have 1 on the map. You probably don't even have to buy 6, honestly. If you just put some defensive control wards down that are difficult to clear, that can give your team a ton of extra advantages. So let's use that mid example with Zed, right? So let's say you don't want to be paying a lot for control wards, but let's say your blue side here, your Zed, you know that your support probably is going to be, you know, hopefully warding up the bottom side of the map, right? And so they're going to have wards around here, so you could do them a favor, put one ward here. If you put a control ward there, that means they can put theirs somewhere else on the map. But if they're helping you out, if they're putting a control ward there, or if the jungler is putting a control ward there, then you could actually move yours up. If you don't want to buy a lot of control wards, you can just stick one in like this bush. Or if you're afraid it's going to get cleared, you could even put your control ward just like defensively over in this bush. This is really the best place because this is going to lock their vision, which means it's not only going to be an offensive ward there. If you're like dominating your lane, that's a place to put it. But if you're kind of getting dominated here, you might say, well, I can't keep a control ward on the map. You know, I'm against this Orianna. I've already died once. You can still just put a control ward like here, right? And that's going to notice if they're invading your jungle so that you can go help. Right, hell, even if it's like you're super scared, just put one here. Just have a ward on the map somewhere because that's going to free your support up to get better vision throughout, right? Because if they are pushing you in right here, what's going to be one of the #1 things that this mid laner is going to want to do if they're dominating you and pushing you in? They're going to want to rotate bottom, right? Like 9 times out of 10, if they're winning, they're going to rotate bottom. How are they going to do that? They're going to try to go around the back and sneak up on your AD carry and support. So if your AD carry and support are doing pretty well bottom, they're pushing up, right? You know, this mid laner, they're going to know that this river is like 99% of the time going to be warded, right? Because, you know, anyone with the brain's going to be able to figure that out, right? So this is going to be warded. They're not going to come down here. Where are they going to go? They're going to try to go this back way and get behind them on the tri-bush, or use this blast plant and get behind them this way to try to avoid any wards in here. But if you have a control ward here, you just potentially saved a double kill bot lane. Like, yeah, they're going to clear it out, but then that gives your bot lane tons of notice, right? It gives them an extra 5 or 10 seconds to get out of there, right? Versus if you didn't have that control ward there and this mid lane comes down, double kills them, takes the dragon, right? Now you're in big trouble. Now it's not just one death in the mid lane. Now you're staring down, you know, this 3-0 Orianna or Zed or Talon or whatever is being played, and now it's almost impossible for you to come back, right? But if you had just had that ward there and you were down just 1 kill and maybe 10 CS, that's carryable, right? Like, you can get back into the game. If your bot lane is dominating, then you just hang on and they will eventually be able to come up here and help you get back into the game. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. It's really easy, and that 75 gold could have saved the entire game, and that's not an uncommon scenario. That is extremely common. So you can use it defensively like that, or offensively, as I just mentioned before. You can have, you know, your control ward here, so that's going to clear up this lane, right? So that when you push them in, you can come straight through here. You know they're not going to have it warded, and then you can like sneak around and lane gank, or that's going to free up, you know, if your bot lane, if your support has a ward there, and the AD carry on bot side has a ward here, then you know that these lanes are going to be clear if you can go down through there. So then that's just going to allow you to, you know, just rotate straight down if you want to, or rotate through there. So just having that control ward on the map is huge, whether it's defensive or offensive. If you don't want to spend a lot of gold, just put it in a defensive spot. At least it's something, right? Like if you have the ward here, you know, you have it over here. You could even put it in a weird spot. Like, people almost never check it. If you put it here, it can last for a very long time. You know, if you're Zed, you push them in and then you just walk out and just dump a control ward there. A lot of people aren't going to check that, right? Or if you're a mid laner over here and you're walking here, you could just come over here, drop a control ward right there. People aren't going to check it. I mean, you could even, if you were Zed, you could even put it like over here. People may not check it that much, right? So just get that control ward on the map. So it's a very small price to pay, because it's not just a kill. So much of the time, it's a kill plus a tower plate, or it's multiple kills, or a kill plus a dragon, or a kill plus a wave of minions. Wave of minions is going to be, you know, 100, 150 gold, depending on if it's got a cannon or not. So it really, really adds up, and it's experience. It's just snowballs. Y'all know how important kills are. So it's super, super valuable. Make sure you have those wards down. And when you're warding, as a support, or really anybody, you want to ward the camps, okay? It's very important, if you can safely do so, to ward the camps and not do shallow wards, Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so let's say that your bot lane here, you're playing, you know, Leona Jhin, something like that. You manage to back them in, right? Like maybe they're playing Bard Misfortune or something like that. You back them in early, they have to back off. And now you're thinking, okay, where do I put this ward? Early on, you do want to put a ward here. This is the biggest place because this is going to see if Scuttle spawns or not and if they're going for the Scuttle. So that is basically a camp. If Scuttle is up, they're going to go for it and it's going to be a camp. But what you're doing when you're warding camps is you are putting the ward in a place where the jungle has to path through there, and you're going to get information even if the jungler is not ganking that area. If you put a shallow ward down, like if you put a ward here, yes, it's going to see if they come down here to gank you, but first of all, it might be too late. Like they might just come in and blast cone over right when you're right here, and then they're going to already have a flank on you. But also, it's not going to give any more information to your team, right? If their jungler comes down and the Scuttle's on top side of the river and they just clear out the Scuttle and then they go and invade your jungler, you know, maybe your jungle is, or maybe they're like going over to gank your mid laner or something like that, right? Like maybe they're coming up your mid laner's push and they gank them. If you had just put that ward here, it would have seen that and you could have alerted your mid laner. But because you had this shallow ward, it didn't see it. And then later on in the game, you know, a good place to put it is on their camp. So like over this wall is great. It's going to spot Gromp, which is really important, and then it's going to spot if they're going for blue. So now, if this jungler is coming down, let's say they're doing their wolves, they come down and do Gromp, now you have tons of notice, not only to back up, but you've also given notice to everyone else on your team, right? So if their jungler is topside, then they say, oh, you know, the enemy jungler's bottom, I can just go get, you know, Rift Herald right now, right? Or if the enemy top is overextended, they can say, all right, I know we can go up here and gank this Darius. This Darius is 2-0. I know Wukong is 0-2. It would be very bad if the enemy jungler also showed up here and we had a 2v2, we'd lose. But because they know that the jungler's bottom, then they know they can safely get a 2v1 and get that shutdown gold on the Darius. Right? So it just gives great information to your team. So it's not just protecting you from ganks, it's empowering your team to make better decisions, right? Top laner, they know if they can go all in. Your jungler can go over there and, you know, take Rift, or maybe they can come over here. Maybe this jungler is starting bottom and then they see that, you know, the Fiddlesticks is pathing top and they're going to want to get their red on respawn. Maybe your Olaf over here is desynced, and they say, okay, I know he's pathing top right now, so I'm going to go intercept him and kill him at his red. I'm going to invade and kill him at his red. There's just so many different decisions that your team can make based off just warding that camp, right? Versus a shallow ward would not give that information, and that might lose you the game, right? Like, you may not think about it. You may not think, okay, these shallow wards, who cares? I'm not getting ganked. I'm winning my lane, right? Like, my AD carry's 5-0. I'm 2-0. Bot lane's getting dumpstered. They're down 30 CS. But then maybe this Darius, you know, kills this top laner 2 more times. You know, Wukong goes 0-4 and says, F this, I'm AFK, and leaves. Right? Versus if you had that information there, then your jungler would know it could be okay to come up here and be safe. Versus if they don't have that information, they might be too scared. They might just say, sorry, bro, like, if the jungler shows up, we're going to die. I can't gank that. Which is smart if you don't have good information. But that means that your top laner is going to keep getting snowballed on. Or, you know, maybe your jungler's too scared to take Rift. If you don't have that info, they could get Rift, gank top, kill them, and then use that Rift in order to break this tower and get that Wukong out of that losing lane. You could have completely just turned that entire lane around on the top side just with one ward on the Gromp in the bottom side of the map. Now, it's not going to happen all the time, but it'll happen a lot more than you think it will by getting that deep vision. So just get the wards on the camps, right? Don't settle for just this shallow vision stuff around here. Get it on the camps because they have to farm the camps. They don't have to gank you. They could just go farm this stuff and then go gank middle. Or they could pass top and go gank top, but they do have to farm the camps eventually. So put a ward there. It's dangerous, but if you can get a ward here, it's hard to go straight up through here and do that because if anything in here is warded, they'll collapse on you. But you might be able to path up here, put a ward there, and then path over here if you have some free time, and you could like put a ward there, put a control ward here, sweep these 2 bushes, and then walk up here and put a ward there. Right, so put a ward here, sweep all this stuff, come up here, put a ward here, and then just back or something like that. Right, so just see if you can get on the camp. If you're a mid laner, right, if you haven't pushed in, don't settle for this shallow ward garbage, right, where you just like ward over this wall. No, like come over here, take 2 extra steps, and move that ward right here. So now you see the raptors. You know if they're farming raptors. Also, you know raptors are up. So if you're a mid laner who can farm these raptors, right? So maybe you're over here, your support warded down here. You know the jungler's there. You know this guy can't fight you because you're, you know, 3-0 Anivia or something like that. And this is a Victor who's 30 CS down. They can't stop you. Just go in here like a boss and just take those raptors from them. You know, if you know where the enemy jungler is, right? So look for those opportunities to farm those chickens if you can. But yeah, just have a good vision game. Try to get as much information as you can. Try to sweep popular spots, right? So like, you know, if you're a support, or you should know, this is one of the most popular spots in the entire game to ward is right here. So if you have a sweeper and you know it's safe, you know the enemy jungler is not going to intercept you, you can come through here, and if you're sweeping this bush and you know it's safe, you might as well sweep this one because there's a very high probability there's going to be a ward there. Okay? So just use that as much as you can. And then another thing that I'll add here as well that I've kind of started doing more and more and more, and I think it's helped my game out a lot, is conceal information. Do not give the enemy information if you can at all help it, right? So a nice trick that I've been doing over and over again, which works great if you play Leona or Alistar or Thresh or just anything that's a playmaking support, you can come up here, push them in, you know, get like your early ward down or something here, or here, depending on how late it is. And then when you come back around, instead of just walking right back up to lane, let's say the minions are right here, you pushed them in and they're like clearing up these minions. Instead of just going straight back to lane where they can see you, I think so many supports would just come back here. What you can do is just path around the backside and try to like sneak into this bush if it's not warded, right? If you just pushed them in, you'll probably see if it's warded or not. And if they didn't ward it, go ahead and do that. Or if it is warded, you can sneak around and sit in this bush and just wait a second. You know, if they don't have good vision in this river, and if you haven't pushed in all the time, they're probably not going to have good vision. They might have a shallow ward here if the game is, you know, a little bit more advanced, but you can put a control ward in there to shut that out if you want to. But just path back around and just hang out in this bush. Right? And then that way when they're coming back down, they're not going to know where you are. They might think you back. They might think you roamed. They may not really be sure. Right? And then that's when, you know, you can come out and engage and get those kills. Right? So just walk around the side and come in. Right? Or when you're walking back to lane, maybe, you know, the wave just got pushed out a little bit. Maybe it's pushing into you. You just killed them. You know, your AD carry is coming in. Just sneak down against this wall as much as you can and get into this bush. And they probably won't see you. Right? So you got to kind of learn the vision of the minions a little bit, but you can sneak into more bushes than you would think you can. And, you know, if it's pushed up even just a little bit more, you might be able to, you know, come around here and get a flank on them that way. Or if you're coming back to lane and you're sure that they don't have tri-bush warded, it's about to crash in, it's right here, you're ahead, you just got a kill or two, you know, come around and gank your own lane. That's something I'll talk about here in a second. But just come through here, you know, drop your control ward in this bush, it's not warded, and they're pushed up, just come around and gank your own lane. Right? So just hide out of vision. Or if you're trying to make a play mid lane and, you know, you're not really sure, you can drop a, you know, drop a ward in there, and then just wait a second, right? Just wait on them to overcommit. You don't have to gank immediately, right? And then just wait on their, you know, mid laner to come in, attack, and then you come out of the bush and get them. So while you're sitting around, everybody's kind of ARAM and mid, you can just hang out right here as a support. This is a great place, kind of a area of operations if you have all of this warded, right? Kind of in the mid game, you have this warded, maybe you have this warded, and this, if your wards look something like that, right, against the enemy, then now you have lots of options, right? If they extend over here, you can gank this. Maybe jungler's coming down here for a counter gank. You can ping it a lot. And then maybe your jungler can come down here as well. And then as soon as they try to come in here, then you can just, you know, all collapse on them and get a good fight there. Maybe, and this is kind of common too, maybe their support's going to come over and try to ward this. So maybe they're walking on this ward right here, and you ping this a lot. Maybe mid laner's pushed in, you ping this a lot, you know, you drop a Leona ult, E him over the wall, and then your mid comes over here and collapses and kills him. So just look for opportunities, just hide in the shadows, lock out that vision, and just sit in bushes, right? Maybe you've got some kind of split push going on here. Maybe you're pushed in a little bit. Their AD carry is over here, you know, pressuring your AD carry. You can just hang out in this bush, just wait on him to step up a little bit, and then jump out, right? You don't have to sit here and farm with your AD carry. You're just sitting there watching them, right? Like, why not just hang out in this bush and just see? Or maybe they have, like, an enemy Rengar or something like that, and your AD carry is just farming down here alone, and you're thinking, okay, that Rengar is going to see that AD carry. It's going to think it's a really good snack. Maybe you're playing Rakan. Just sit there and wait. Rengar's probably going to come for him, right? Especially if it's pushed up a little bit more, right? If AD carry's out here by themselves, you know, you can hide here, Rengar jumps in, you save the day, you get the kill. You have to be careful with that later on in the game, because if Baron's up, then they might sneak a Baron on you instead. But just, you know, stay out of vision. Just wait on opportunities. Just try to see, you know, see some things that are coming. And then anticipate that pathing, right? So if you have wards, like, in their jungle over here, and let's say you're red side support, right, and they come in and, you know, they're sweeping this jungle bush, you know where they're going next, right? The vast majority of the time they're going to come over and try to sweep this bush. So just call in your mid laner, say, hey, just ping a lot, get them to come over here, and then as soon as the support walks over here to check this bush, you just jump on them, right? And so that's really what you want to do, is be thinking ahead, lock out vision, you know, just be one step ahead of them, and then get those kills. Okay. Now let's talk about processing information here real quick. So I don't want this guy to be too long, but vision is supremely powerful. It snowballs. It gives you such a huge lead. That's just really what I want to convey. Just how much that opens up the game and gives you a huge advantage if you get that vision. Okay, so a lot of League is just about processing that information. So once you get the vision, you have the information, but then you have to process it and, you know, turn it into something actionable for your team. So if you see flash timers, teleport, and heal, you need to ping those. Those are the really important ones. Ignite is kind of important. Exhaust is kind of important. Those are lower cooldowns. But these are all about 5 minutes. So they'll be a little bit less. I think heal's 4 minutes. And yes, if they have, you know, Ulti Hunter, or I guess not Ulti Hunter, but like Cosmic Insight or Boots of Lucidity or something like that, they're going to have a lower flash timer. But just for good, easy math, just call like 5 minutes or so. So you see him flash at 7, you know that flash is not going to be up until, you know, 12 minutes, give or take, right? And if you see other people use this too, if you're watching the mini-map, there's a fight breaking out around jungle, but you have to kind of keep an eye on your lane. You can't click it up there. Just, you know, keep one eye on that fight, and if you see somebody just kind of blink away, right, on the mini-map, you see Orianna just kind of dash from one spot to another, you know she doesn't have a dash, that was a flash. Right, so just make sure that you use that flash. Or if you see like their top laner teleport back top, go ahead and ping that teleport timer. Okay, so just keep track of these things as much as you can. So not only ping yourself, but ping other lanes if you can. Learn popular cooldowns. This is something that I see quite a bit, even in kind of higher elo players sometimes, you know, like some platinum players, even in a low diamond, people don't understand cooldowns, or they aren't like appropriately adjusting the threat level of champions based on the cooldowns, right? So if you see a blitz hook right in front of you and he misses, he's worthless for 20 seconds. Okay, so your reaction shouldn't be, oh, blitz missed his hook, all right, I'm gonna go back and just farm a little bit more and hang out. It needs to be like, no, get him now, right? Like as soon as that blitz hook misses, if you see like a challenger or something like that, they're going immediately as soon as somebody misses something like that. Vayne tumbles forward, Ezreal E's forward, you know, or something like that to get a minion or to try to get some poke, boom, you're on him immediately as soon as they use one of those key cooldowns. Morgana accidentally is like black shielding to prevent some poke, you know, maybe you're playing Zyra or something like that, and Morgana tries to black shield because a plant's hitting her, and as soon as that black shield falls off, you're like, all right, I'm looking for E right now. Like, I'm looking for this root, we're going all in right now. as soon as I get the opportunity, right? So you need to understand that when someone uses cooldowns in front of you, they don't have those cooldowns anymore. Like I've seen so often, this will happen in team fights too, which are a little busier, but you'll see like an AD carry just playing so far back and just too scared to enter the fight, even though they just saw like the Thresh use his hook, or they just saw, you know, Vi ult somebody and use her combo, or whatever it is, some like big important cooldown. They don't adjust their play. They're still playing really scared as though that person still has that cooldown when they don't, right? So you got to learn these cooldowns, and you have to sort of learn how to properly adjust the threat level. And as soon as someone uses something that takes a lot of threat level off of them, you have to punish them for that. You have to go hard. So that's the kind of thing where if you're not looking for it, if you don't understand it, it won't look like a mistake, right? And so you might go 2-0 in the bot lane, and you might be up 10 CS on your opponent at 10 minutes, but you let the blitz get away with hooking and missing, and you didn't do anything about it. And then your top laner, you know, feeds, goes 0-5, and then you lose the game, and the natural instinct is like, oh, I want to flame my top laner because they suck. I did fine in my lane. I went 2-0 and 10 CS, but, you know, this guy fed top. It's like, no, you made a lot of mistakes in the bot by not taking advantage of those opportunities, right? You should have been 5-0 in the bot lane to match that 0-5 top lane, right? Because it's a race in solo queue. It's not just, I'm going to do okay. You are racing the worst person on your team most of the time, right? You have to get more fed than the enemy is going to get fed off of your team. And so you lost those 3 kills, which didn't allow you to snowball, and that didn't allow you to carry that Darius who went 0-5 top. So that's how you have to think about it. You have to be proactive. We'll talk about being proactive in a second, but you have to take advantage of that. You have to know the cooldowns, and you have to go, and you have to assert your dominance on the lane immediately. You cannot just chill and farm if you're looking to climb, or you're just not going to be able to carry. You're just basically relying on the enemy team to carry you. To some extent. So just, you know, having just 1 or 2 percentage points edge in the bot lane, right? Just doing a little bit better than your opponent is not enough. You have to absolutely demolish him. Because you have to carry everyone else, right? You have to make up for the people who aren't doing well on your team. So learn those jungle paths and ping too. If you can really learn some of the pathings of certain junglers, you can ping. Right, so if you ward the bot lane scuttle, they do not show up in the scuttle area around 3 minutes. You need to start like pinging question marks top lane, and then if they don't show up at 3:15, you need to ping back on your top laner. Just let them know the jungler is top lane. They're not at the scuttle. They have to be somewhere on the map. Where are they? They're top lane. Okay, if you know the enemy started on blue buff. Right, if you get an early warder on blue buff or something and see it, then you know they're probably going to be top lane, right? If it's a champion who's going to early gank, who's going to like 3 camp gank, right? If it's like a Lee Sin, he's going to do blue, gromp, red gank. You have to know some of the junglers. You have to have a bit more knowledge there. Then you need to warn your top laner at 2:30 or so that Lee Sin's going to be up there ganking. So, yeah, is it your top lane's fault? In theory, if they're like, you know, all the way pushed in at 3 minutes without any vision, yeah, it is, but you can at least ping it, right? It's like maybe they don't listen, but maybe 30% of people do listen and they back off. So it's all about percentages. You can't just look at it and say, okay, there is this one game where my top laner just did not listen and they just kept feeding. There's nothing I can do. Yes, that is going to happen sometimes, but you got to think there's a certain percentage of top laners that will listen. And so I need to try to convey that information as much as I can. And use multiple pings. Don't just use one question mark on your lane, right? So maybe you lost pressure bottom. Like maybe your ADC died early. You had to back off a little bit, right? Let me reset this here. Just as an example. Maybe you had to back off a little bit. The enemy has a blitzcrank or something like that. You're not able to get great vision because you're pushed under tower. So maybe like you just have like a couple of shallow wards. Like this is just the best you can do for now, right? Until you get a good reset. But maybe this is all you have. And then the blitzcrank is missing. So let's say that they push you in and you see this blitzcrank going up here. Maybe you have a ward like another shallow ward here. And so you know he's not in that bush. after a couple of seconds, you need to spam ping your mid laner, right? So if your mid's like pushed up here, as soon as you see Blitz running up here, spam ping it, right? Ping question marks around here, ping back pings in the upper river, and then ping Blitzcrank's picture 2 or 3 times just to let them know, tell them a story, let them know what's going on. Not just, I'm not sure what's going on bottom, but just say, no, Blitzcrank is in that river and he's heading towards you right now. Okay, and do it with pings. Don't type it, because some people have chat muted, which you should be doing a lot, but just let them know that they're coming there. Ping the portraits of people. That way they know. And, you know, ping other lanes too, right? Like if you're watching your mini-map and you notice that your top is overextended, and let's say that you do have a ward, let's say you have a ward here, and, you know, maybe your mid laner has a ward here, their mid laner goes missing, right? And you're watching the mini-map carefully, and you're like, okay, there's no way he's going bottom because I didn't see him on any wards. Ping the top laner back. Just say ping, 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 ping. You know, they're coming top. Ping the mid laner's portrait, and then let them know. Now, is it your job, quote unquote, to let the top laner know that mid laner's missing? Well, it depends. Do you want to win or not? Everything is your job. Anything that can help your team win is your job if you're committed to winning. So do that. Ping it. Call it out. Let them know, hey, mid laner's going top or whatever. If, you know, your jungler is thinking about invading, but they're not watching, you know, what's going on there, you can try this, but, like, if the mid laner's up here, just ping them back and just ping this person's portrait and just let them know, like, hey, back up, this mid is right here, just ping Zed's portrait, ping, you know, your Oriana's portrait, who's in lane, who's back in the base, and, you know, just let him know. Now, maybe he keeps invading, but maybe he was just sitting there listening to some music, not paying attention to what was going on mid lane, and maybe you just woke him up a little bit. So, yes, will most junglers still invade? Probably, right, without lane priority. But you know, once again, maybe 30% listen to you and back up, and that could be a, you know, game-changing move there if you just communicate that. So just do the best you can to communicate information as much as you can. Ping the CDs on your items, your spells, ping your allies timers, right? So ping your ult timer, let them know, hey, I've got 15 seconds till I have this Leona ult back up, or hey, Ashe, your arrow's up in 10 seconds. You know, you can ping it. When you see their little pictures in the bottom right, it'll have a little, you know, circle with a whatever, a timer on it. You can ping that. And sometimes you can ping it just to tell you the seconds that are left. So you might see it, you might say, okay, it's coming up soon, but then you ping it and it'll say 14 seconds or whatever on it. So you can't see that anywhere. You just see the little bar, or if you press tab, it's not going to give you any information. But if you ping it, it will tell you the information. So, you know, if you're Leona, 10 seconds on your ult, looks like Ashe's is almost ready or something like that, ping your ult 10 seconds, ping her ult 14 seconds. And then, you know, just start pinging that you're going to go in. Ping your ult a couple more times, and just let them know that you're going to go in. Okay? Ping your, like, when you're Ignite, maybe someone's looking for a fight. Maybe your Ashe really wants to fight. She's pinging like she wants to go. Ping your Ignite timer. You know, if your Ignite is 10 seconds, ping your Ignite and then ping back. And then as soon as your Ignite is ready, then ping forward. Okay, I've got Ignite, let's go. Like, that's a big deal. That's 200 true damage, 300 true damage, whatever it is, you know, in the game, and it's only 10 seconds away. You might as well wait on it, right, to, you know, have a higher probability of getting that kill. So just ping that, just let it know, just let them know, right? Maybe your top laner rotated bottom, and they're down there pushing out a wave, and your team is thinking about starting a fight up top, but their teleport bot lane still has 30 seconds on it. Ping that timer, say, hey, they don't have teleport for 30 seconds, do not fight this, their top laner's up here, right? Like, we see their Mundo running through the jungle. You know, our Darius is out of position. He shouldn't be down there with no teleport at that point in the game, but he is. So you got to back up, and that's just how it is, right? So people will do that. Sometimes people are just out of position without teleport, and you just have to let your team know, hey, it's a bad fight, don't take it, right? Now, will someone take the fight sometimes? Yes, of course they will. But, you know, once again, some percentage of people are going to listen and not take the fight because they probably just weren't paying attention. They weren't watching the teleport timer, or they didn't notice that your top laner has Ignite, you know, throughout the whole game. And then just check the mini-map before you engage, like I just mentioned before, and tab and look at stuff too. I'm not sure where I put that, but press tab and just let people know, like if, you know, Darius is 4-0, the enemy Darius is 4-0 top lane, just let them know, hey, this guy's got some items, right? He's got his, you know, completed stride breaker plus something else. Like, you need to be careful, don't fight them or whatever, because sometimes people are caught off guard, right? They get into a fight and they're like, holy crap, how'd that champion do that much damage? And it's like, oh, he's 8-0. Right? Especially if you haven't seen the champion all game, right? If it's like you've been bot lane all game and you're dominating and you feel like you're awesome, and then all of a sudden their top laner who's 8-0 comes into the team fight, it can feel like you're just not even playing the same game anymore. So try to communicate that as much as possible without like flaming, but just letting people know, hey, that dude's really strong, like be careful. Okay, last few things here, and then we'll call it a video. Apply pressure. I already mentioned this several times. You have to punish mistakes, right? Anything you can do to squeeze out an advantage, you need to do it, right? So that means if you are a, you know, Leona or something else that can fight early. I mentioned Leona a lot because she's really strong as of the making of this patch, and it doesn't look like they're nerfing her anytime soon. If you're playing a really strong champion like a Leona, you need to be fighting, trying to get that level 2. Now, you can't always do it. If you're against double ranged, it can be hard. But if you fight and get that level 2 early, then you have the opportunity to go for that kill. Just E plus Q plus Ignite. They're burning their flash and their heal, or they're dying most of the time if you're able to hit them with it. So you should be up here in this wave as soon as that last minion is going to fall down. You need to be here the moment that you hit that you know, third melee minion. You need to go. Immediately go on them. If they back up, you zone them off, right? So if they back up, they notice that you're going to hit it. They have a brain, they back up, you're standing right here on this front minion line. You're pinging forward with your AD carry until they come up here with you. And y'all are just going to stand here and zone them off. And then they're going to miss 5 or 10 CS while this is building up a slow push to go into their base when you get that advantage. And so now all of a sudden you have this slow push coming in. You're zoning them off of minions. If they ever try to step up, you know, you're going for it. You're hitting them with that E. They don't want to do anything about it. Then all of a sudden you can come up here and potentially take that scuttle or run their jungler off the scuttle or just whatever early on. But that's what I'm saying about being proactive. You need to be there. You need to be scary looking, right? If you're ahead, you don't need to be sitting here farming, right? You either need to be trying to sneak up on them and hide in these bushes and just try to get a sneaky kill on them, or you need to be like in a forward bush pressuring them, right? Because if you're sitting here and you're stronger than them and you're like a Leona or a Blitzcrank or a Thresh or just anything that can engage and is spooky, you can zone them off of this a lot early on. So you need to be applying that pressure, making them scared. If you're a ranged champion, right? If you're Nami or something like that early on, every time you need to be trying to you know, line up with the AD carry. Every time they try to land a minion, you're hitting them with something, right? Your W, auto attack, empowered auto attack with your E. You're looking for a bubble when they're going for that cannon minion. You're looking to hit that bubble on them while they're standing still. You just need to be doing something that's threatening at all times. If you're an AD carry, try to land as many of those auto attacks if you can. If you're Caitlyn, you should not just be sitting there farming. You know, if you have an opportunity, you need to step up and try to auto attack them as much as you can. Now, if the wave's really thick, obviously you can't do that. You're going to take too much minion aggro back. But if it's a thin wave, you need to be going for that. Put down some traps, right? Make it annoying for them to try to farm. So just try to take those trades. Get as much as they'll give you. As I see so many people just let it ride, right? Like they'll hit level 2 early and just sit there. Like, no big deal, right? It's like, no, you need to go. You need to pressure them if you can, right? Obviously, if it's like, you have to read the situation. If your team has Ezreal and you're playing Janna and they're playing, you know, Draven, Leona, you're giving up that wave. You're not going to be able to level 2 them, right? So read the situation, but just be as aggressive as you possibly can be. Try to play champions that can do that can bully people out as much as you can. Do something with the pressure, right? When you have them pushed in, you know, a lot of times one of the worst things you can do if they're actively sitting there is just to stare at them, right? So if you're the support and it's about to push in, you need to come out, either get that deep vision that we talked about earlier, start warding those camps. You could rotate middle if an opportunity comes up, right? If their mid laner's pushed in, you see a good opportunity, you're an Alistar with Moby Boots or whatever, get behind them, make that play. So look for that. Or once again, the really popular thing that I've seen over and over again, if you didn't see them ward this bush, you know, just act like you're leaving. Like when that's pushed in, come over here and then loop back around and see if you can get in this bush. Sometimes people will see you leave the lane and they'll think you're roaming middle and they will just go on you real hard. So they might go on the AD carry here, right? They might go on this Draven, just run at them with the Janna thinking they're tough, and then you come out of the bush with Leona and you just kill them, right? So just locking them out of that vision. If they try to get cute and ward this, you can sneak into this bush and sit here and just wait until they come out a little bit further, start feeling a little comfortable, and then you can jump on them right here. Because you don't have to CS as support. You don't have to show yourself in lane. You do need to go up and use those stacks off your relic shield or whatever whenever you can, but look for some of those kills. And then take objectives, right? You see the jungler topside, push in, like spam ping the wave, spam ping your jungler, push this in, and then just go rotate and go get that dragon, right? Don't let them get away with that. You know, if jungler shows topside and you have pressure bottom, that should be dragon immediately, right? So just ping your team, like go, 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 dragon right now, right? Or if they just sent 3 people to go kill bottom, go get Baron, right? Like if it's in the middle of the game, you know, go get Baron. And if they want to show up and do something about it, turn around and kill them, right? So like maybe their Kha'Zix is topside, but everyone else, you know, I'll speed up because we're running out of time here. Maybe everyone else went bottom side, just go do the Baron. Kha'Zix shows up over here. He's like, oh, I think I might try to steal this Baron. You know, you can just say, no, you won't. Go over the wall with Leona and just kill him and then take the Baron, right? So you have to punish them. You cannot let them send 3 people bottom if Baron's up without at least taking a look at it, right? Same thing with Dragon. You got to go over there and at least take a look at it. You know, if you have to turn around and kill them, but they're able to stall out the Baron, at least you got a kill traded, right? So that's what I'm talking about. You have to punish mistakes. You have to be proactive and just shot call, lock out that vision, and just zone them off the fight if you can. And the final thing I'll mention just in the last couple of minutes here is try to cultivate a winning mentality. So this is what I've talked about before. Mute chat. If someone spam pings you over stupid stuff, like they just think that you're playing poorly or whatever, mute the pings. I like to keep pings on by default unless someone abuses it, but definitely mute the chat. There's no reason. Like you can express, you know, happy things with emotes if you want to, right? That's the only thing. I mean, there are some complex things that maybe chat like, hey, let's 1-3-1 split or whatever, but most people probably aren't going to understand it anyways, or they're not going to listen. And it's just not worth dealing with the toxicity sometimes. I don't think League is an overly toxic game. I've got a video on that, but it's just distracting, right? Like 90% is just people whining. Like, oh, this matchup's really hard, or oh my god, I've been ganked twice. There's no way I could have done anything about that. You know, all that kind of stuff. And it's just going to distract you. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your mental energy. So just go ahead, mute the chat, and just no excuses. As I mentioned before, yes, some games will seem unwinnable, right? But take ownership of that. What could you have done? Right? Could you have helped that person out earlier? Could you have dominated your lane harder? Could you have provided better vision and better shot calling to help them not get into that situation where they were throwing or where they were feeding in that game? And sometimes, you know, there's not a lot you can do. You know, a game, maybe you just had a 10% chance to win because every game was feeding, but was there something you could do to take that 10% to maybe a 40%, right? Were there ways you could have gotten better vision and maybe had a really good engage? Even if you're down like 5,000 gold, if you're playing, you know, some kind of engaged champ and you get a miracle engage, you might be able to win the game off of that. I mean, pro games have been won where people have been down 10,000 gold before. I've seen it. It can happen even at the highest level of play, so it can surely happen in a silver game, right? So I'm not one of those never give up kind of guys, but I think that people give up a little bit too much. A lot of games are a lot more winnable than people think, especially if you're using some of the tips in this video. Last couple of things, you know, it's okay to be frustrated, but just always circle back like, okay, that really sucked. I got baited there, but I should have known better. If I was looking at the mini-map, I would have known we didn't have enough people there. Or if I was paying attention, I could see this guy's been making bad decisions all game, so maybe I shouldn't follow him into this fight. You just got to circle back to you and think about it. And the last thing I'll mention is just remember that you can dodge. You don't have to play the game, right? If it looks bad, you can dodge. You know, in Champions, like I mentioned before, you can take a break. You don't have to play for 10 hours in a row, right? If you're on a 3-game loss streak, go take a break. Go get something to eat. Go exercise. Go watch some funny cat videos on YouTube. Whatever it is, it's going to help you reset your mental. It's okay. It's okay to admit you're a little flustered. You're a little tilted. It's fine. just take a break, come back when you're feeling better, right? Because I think sometimes we get into this trap of thinking that I have to play a million games to climb, when in fact you don't. It's a lot better just to play games where you can give it 100% of your focus rather than to keep spamming games. If you play 100 games, you go 50-50, you didn't go anywhere. But if you play 20 games and plus 5, you just gained perhaps up to a division, I should say. Anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. Stay tuned for more content, and I'll see you next time.